Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, for the all praise to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, and Karkadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles, the elders, great millstone. I want to say shalom to all the Akim, dear preachers, truth and not true cities, the brother Tazon, Kabar, from GMS Miami, the Herald of Yahushai, 144 camp. Back with another video through the Spirit. All right, as you can see, it's another in transit video. All right, low willing video is edifying through the Spirit. All right, and there's something that's been on my spirit. Okay, you know, the Lord is increasing, all right, prophecy, all right, as far as seeing more of the signs play out more and more. All right, what's going on really right now is the rumors of the wars and stuff like that. All right, we're seeing these things play out more and more. We're seeing the escalation of certain tensions, all right, right now in the Middle East. Okay, all right, and then the scriptures are indeed speaking louder and louder. The scriptures always been speaking, but as we get closer to the end, things are getting louder. Okay, where it's undeniable. Our people are really having to sit down and face reality of the truth. Okay, and it's also showing us that our salvation is nearer than we believe. Okay, and this is the things that we've been hastening and praying for and crying out for and signed for, because we want to get the fuck out of here. Alright, we indeed want to get out of here, man. Alright, we want to see, we want the kingdom. Alright, we want righteousness to be established upon earth. Alright, we want Yahushai, alright, being ruler. Alright, that's soon to come. Alright, but before that even happens, you know, there's certain things that has to play out, and these things are moving speedily. Okay, and the Lord is hearing our prayers. All right, but seeing these things, you know, our best bet is to continue doing what we got to do. All right, and continue staying strong and, you know, doing the work. All right, this is the time to be more rooted and more in the spirit of serving Yahweh Shema Shai. All right. Yeah, although we do see these things playing out, you know, this is not the time to really be slacking. All right, speaking to myself in the foremost, this is not the time to be getting a little comfortable and slacking. All right, there's still work to be done. There's still things we got to do. There's still things we got to improve on. All right, before really all hell breaks loose and, you know, these things start hitting closer to home. All right, right now things are brewing up, and this stage is being set for troubles to happen, or the troubles to intensify. All right, the war in the Middle East is having a lot of things increase in price, especially gas. Okay, soon eventually, you know, when gas starts getting expensive, all right, other things start getting expensive, because gas, oil, they in the same, like, the same basket. But like I'm saying, once gas starts getting expensive, everything follows to being expensive too. Okay, because you're gonna have gas being expensive, a lot of things, all right, like food and water and the necessities of life are gonna start getting expensive. Because of why? Because once those prices of gas rise up, or it takes more money to transport goods. All right, it takes more money to transport goods. All right, which is gonna help, you know, in the inflation. Okay, this scripture talk about in Revelation 6, a day's wage. Okay, and that's being set in stone as this war brews up. All right, they blowing up and fucking up the transportation of the oils and the natural resources, even to the gases. Okay, and you know, these things are beautiful times. You know, things that we pray for. You know, and, you know, and we're almost out here. All right. All right, which, you know, I say all to say this, that we're almost out of here. All right, things are going to get bad. Eventually, people want to start, you know, realizing the truth is the truth. Our people want to start having to face reality, and people want to understand that the Lord's words are faithful and true. And sadly, they're going to have to figure that out when shit start really getting bad. Okay, people are going to start not going to work. That's how expensive It is. You look at gas at this point is like another bill. Okay, as the shit rises and rises. And the last time it rose was, I think, during the C-19 relief. Okay, so think about that. All right, in this era, it don't look like things are really gonna turn back. All right, you know, it's gonna take a while to really fix things up. All right, which that's really not for the sake of prophecy. The Lord is in the spirit of, fucking this place up, fucking up these nations. All right. So, once again, it'll behoove us to stay firm in Yahweh Shema Shai, seeing that we're almost out of here. All right, seeing that, things are soon about to pop off. All right. Things are only going to escalate from here. Okay, thus said the Lord. All right, the set of perils got to happen. All right, that's about great miseries that's got to happen. Jacob's trouble is going to intensify. Okay, we're already in the midst of it. Everything is set in stone. All right, the Lord just have to turn it up a notch. All right, Esau seeing his, kingdom being split and falling down, falling down. Okay, and we're for it. All right, for us to get the kingdom and righteousness to be established, things on this side have to fall down. All right, things on this side got to crash. All right, things on this side got to, break down. And right now we're seeing the de-dollarization, the petrodollar being broken down. Okay, we're seeing a lot of these nations withdrawing. All right, trust in the dollar and trying to, trade in other forms of currencies. Okay, we're seeing nations having divisions against each other's so-called allies beefing. All right, especially because of what's going on in the Middle East. Okay, all these nations are beefing with each other. So-called allies thinking like, damn, you're supposed to help me out. Or you're supposed to protect me. That's why I let you, like, for example, these bases that got hit, that U.S. is using in the Middle East, they most likely looking at America like, I'll let y'all, establish y'all places here, but y'all supposed to be protecting us. All right, but y'all letting us get hit willy-nilly. All right, despite of, us letting you use our land. Okay, they're seeing that, all right, America is more lenient and leaning towards the helping the JJs instead of helping, their allies. Trump is causing division. Okay, the least of the flock is drawing America out. Okay, all right, so just pinpoint certain thing that's playing out, which we already know through the spirit, but it just all shows that nothing is going right for this man. All right, it's just showing you that everything is just leading to prophecy. All right, his kingdom is not going, it's not gonna last forever. All right, his kingdom is not gonna last long. Okay, America's about to hit its 250 years. All right, this year. That's the average they say for rulership of the kingdom. So that's another big thing in itself. Okay, so call on me like Yahweh Shema Shai. All right. And that also too. I also want to point out too that peace and safety. All right, that they also did promise. All right, the people, the nations, the border peace. I got to bring that out too. All right, because peace and safety is not gonna come, right, especially not on this side. Okay. You can say peace and safety is sudden destruction. All right, and you seen a little bit of that. All right, in the Lord Code, you seen a little bit of that when before this whole thing started. Okay, you had the border peace. Trump, trying to, put his head on high, saying, well, we need peace and stuff like that. Then also you had the talks with Iran, negotiating, and boom, shit just escalated. All right, the Lord is having it where if it's not for prophecy, he's not with it. All right, he has certain things that are set in stone. All right, the peace that Esau wants, so called. All right, it's not part of what is going to play out within the movie. All right, you can say the Lord mustered the host of the battle. All right, so the Lord is putting in the hearts and minds of these nations to to play within the hands of prophecy. Okay, peace on this side. Fuck no. Peace, true peace comes with the Prince of Peace, Yahweh side. Yeah, right. It's good to talk about the time and place for everything. Ecclesiastes 3. And right now is a time of war. Okay. Time of division. Okay. And that's what we live in. It's like, yeah, alarm. My phone alarm just cut off the video. But once again, lower this video edifying. You know, we almost out of here. I want to say, you know, Apatham, keep fighting, keep enduring. Let's keep pushing, you know, putting forth our best work. As you know, the Lord is soon about to save us out of this wicked place. I'll say, you know, once again, first and foremost, give all praise to Yahweh, by Hashem, outside, by Hashem Kakadash. We get double on our apostles, Elsgir Millstone. I also say shalom to all the Akim out there, preaching the truth in all true city on the Sabbath. Shalom.